Hello, and welcome to the Women's Endurance panel hosted by Inside Tracker. I'm Dorothy Beal, otherwise known online as Mileposts, and I will be your moderator for tonight. A little about me before we get started. I've worked in the running industry in various roles since 2002. I ran my first marathon in 2003, and up until that point, I didn't really love running. It was just something I did to lose weight and stay out of trouble. I fell in love the moment I crossed the finish line of my first marathon and have been running marathons ever since. I've completed 46 marathons and I'm working towards earning the Abbott World Marathon Major 6-star medal. I was supposed to run London Marathon last spring, but like many, had my target race canceled. I hope a dream deferred is going to feel that much sweeter when I fingers crossed, earn that medal this fall when I run London. I'm a mom of 3, work for myself, and get to do fun things like moderate this panel. Tonight, we have an amazing lineup of 6 incredible endurance athletes that you may or may not know. If you don't know them, that's fine. After tonight, I hope you learn a lot about them and enjoy what they have to say enough to follow their journeys on social media. I've been lucky enough to know Keira since I was 19, but I'll also be learning about the other women and how they fueled their adventures right alongside you. Rather than introduce everybody at once, I'm going to dive right in with the questions and give you mini introductions as I call on an athlete to speak. As a reminder, this panel is being recorded, so if you missed something and would like to rewatch a part of it, you'll be emailed a link to it on Friday, or you can find it posted on the Inside Tracker Instagram page under IGTV. The first question is one that seems like it should be the easiest, but I often find it a hard question to answer. And so I'm going to give it to Sally first. Sally is a professional ultra trail runner for Nike. She's been traveling around the world the past 7 years, racing in some of the world's toughest races. She's a mother of 2 who runs her own coaching and consulting business. Sally finished her first 100-miler on a fractured leg. An Inside Tracker blood test revealed that she was deficient in several key nutrients, and not because she wasn't eating, but because she wasn't eating enough of the right foods. Nutrition and recovery have become a priority for her so she can keep up with the demands of racing ultras, running her own business, and also being a mom. And so the question I have for you is, why do you love running, and what keeps you going year after year?
All right. That is an easy question, but it's hard to compact. Also, hello, everyone that's watching. It is great to be able to gather like this. So I love running because it's just been a natural passion of mine since I was a little girl. Whether it was like playing tag, as simple as that is, it was like my favorite thing to do in elementary school. I started doing races when I was 7 years old, and then I discovered soccer, and soccer has a lot of running in it. I actually was a sprinter in high school as a way to keep in shape for soccer. It's just always been a part of my life, but also in some of the most challenging seasons in my life, whether it was going through loss or just some personal struggles. Running was this way that I could completely disconnect from from technology and noise, and whether it was getting out on a trail or just running up to the top of a mountain. It was that quiet time for me, that release. And so especially with the year that we've had, my love for running didn't fade. It was something that I needed more than ever. And my hope is that I stay healthy enough so I can do it for the rest of my life. So.
Love that. And so would anybody else like to profess their love of running and what keeps them going?
Yeah, I'll
No
speak.
takers.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, no one else loves running.
No, I love running. I'm obsessed with it. I have found, similar to Sally, that running has played such a big role in my life for many different reasons. Like in high school, it was a way that I could fit in and join a team. And then more recently, as a mother, it was having something like of my own, something that I controlled, a little space to myself. And kind of similar to Sally also, especially in 2020, I clung to running harder than I ever had in my life just because I needed something. I needed a goal. I needed to work towards something. I needed a reason to get up every day and be excited. And I think that really filled that void for me in a year that there wasn't a lot. But Yeah, I love running too.
Awesome. Okay, so the next question is going to Erika Kemp, and Erika is a professional runner for the Boston Athletic Association and Adidas. She is a New Jersey native who is a 6-time All-American in cross country and track while at NC State. She was the 2019 US 15K champion and is an Olympic trials qualifier in the 5,000 and 10,000 meter. She is a barista and free-flowing cooking enthusiast, which I'd love to hear more about that. And she says the kitchen is one of her happiest places. My question for you is, how did you overcome adversity in 2020 and adapt your training and racing? And what is some advice that you could give to other runners who still may be struggling with all the changes that we've gone through?
Yeah, happy to be here. I completely forgot the whole free-flowing cooking thing. We can talk about that later. I was just like, oh my gosh, I talk like this. But 2020 was obviously like a very strange year. All of the races were canceled, and usually you structure your training and your goals and your life around these major races. So when everything was canceled, it was kind of just like a free fall. And it's like, well, what do we do next? So it was really tough here in Boston because it was good, but they were pretty strict on COVID restrictions and gatherings. So we couldn't meet with our coach or teammates in person for like 8 or 10 weeks. So we went from like training as this group and traveling all over the country to suddenly being isolated with nothing on the schedule. And it was just like a very strange situation. But I think we got through it by kind of just getting back to the basics. Like Sally and Keira were saying, running gave them something to look forward to and a goal to chase. Running gave us something to do here when we were like stuck and isolated. You don't necessarily need a race on the calendar, which is what I learned in the last year. You don't need a hard date or a specific goal to keep training every day or to get outside every day and just do something. So I think more specifically, the goals just got a lot smaller. So it became, instead of like, oh, I want to run this time at this race, or I want to do this at the trials, it became, I just want to be better than yesterday, or I hope I feel better on this long run than the long run previously, or wow, it was really hot, I hope tomorrow's workout's better. So I think just kind of shifting your goalposts around and rearranging them was definitely something that helped me this past year.
I love that. So great. So the next question, I'm going to go to Maddie. Maddie is a professional runner for Team Boss in Boulder, Colorado. She attended the University of Colorado, where she walked onto the cross country and track team and became a scholarship athlete, All-American by her 5th year. She decided to pursue a career in sports nutrition after working with a dietitian helped her drastically improve her performance. She then went on to get her master's in nutritional sciences from San Diego State University. She is currently a registered dietitian and owner of her own sports nutrition consulting business, Fueling Forward, where she works with athletes of all ages and levels to help them use nutrition to optimize their performance. So my question for you is, you've mentioned before that it's important for athletes to not just make sure they're eating healthy, but instead, or maybe I should say, as well as make sure that they're adequately fueled. So my question is, how do you prioritize and stay on top of your nutrition daily? And how would someone who thinks that they eat healthy or mostly healthy make sure that they're not underfueling their adventures?
Great question. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming tonight. I'm really excited to be here and be a part of this amazing panel. So, I always hear athletes say, oh, I eat really healthy, but healthy and adequately fueled aren't the same thing for a couple of reasons. And the main reason being athletes are different from general population. So a lot of athletes get, a lot of their nutrition information from targeted towards general population, like eating more vegetables, eating more fruits, limiting carbohydrates. That's probably the biggest killer for athletes. So the first thing is just understanding that athletes' needs are different from general population. When you're done running, that's a different story. But for now, carbohydrates, those kinds of things are a main focus. So I always encourage athletes just to make it pretty simple to focus on 3 main things on your plate. So the first being carbohydrates. You know, no low carb diets for athletes, especially endurance athletes. That's going to be your main source of fuel. So getting a high quality source of carbohydrates on your plate for every meal is really important. The other one is protein. So focusing on high quality protein at every meal, which will help with recovery and muscle building and all of that. And the last one is color. So fruits or vegetables. And the color portion is not meant to be the main portion. You know, there is such a thing for athletes as too many veggies or fruits. That's where I start to see a lot of stomach issues pop up. So just kind of simplifying it in that way, you know, getting enough of the right things in the right proportions specific to athletes, I think is probably the best way to make sure that you're staying adequately fueled and also eating healthy at the same time.
That's so helpful. I would have thought that we should be loading up on veggies. I hadn't thought about it messing with our stomachs. So I'd love to follow that up and ask you another question. Which biomarkers from the Inside Tracker test results would you recommend that women runners focus on optimizing?
Yeah, so I see mostly, this is not going to come as any surprise, but mostly female athletes I see struggles with iron. So not only deficiencies in iron, but actually overload in iron. So I think there's a lot of female athletes who think, okay, I'm a female athlete, so I need to be taking iron. But that's not really always the case. And iron deficiency and iron overload have really similar symptoms. So I see a lot of athletes saying, I'm really fatigued and I'm really tired, I need to be taking iron, when that might actually be making the problem worse. So that's why I always encourage athletes to get blood tests before, you know, coming to a conclusion that something's deficient, because it could be the complete opposite. But typically, yeah, iron is the one I'm primarily focused on for female athletes. Some hormonal ones as well, just depending on how you're training and recovering. But it always just depends on, you know, what you're struggling with and what your diet looks like. And if there's anything I think is missing, I always confirm that with a blood test rather than just jumping to, let's add this or take this out.
Excellent advice. So the next question is for Keira. And I'm going to give you a little bio of Keira. Keira is a realtor by day and professional runner by night. She recently signed a pro contract with Nike. She's in the record books for earning the U.S. top 10 female all-time performances in the marathon, half marathon, and 10-mile distance. She proudly holds the women's American record for 10 miles. Her time was a 51:23, which is a blazing 5:08 per mile. And I had the distinct honor of watching her accomplish this. She loves jokes and says that if you ever run by her, make sure you wave. And if you have a few moments after this panel, I'd love for you to Google Keira. Her bio is impressive, but what I think is even more impressive is that she took years off and didn't run, came back to the sport, and has thrived this past year. So my question for you, Keira, is what are your running goals in 2021? And maybe you could give a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, so hi everybody again. I'm Keira D'Amato. Kind of a crazy year 2020 was for me. I feel like I really finally had that breakthrough year. I feel like if you take anything away from my story, it would be that you can choose your own path and go your own way, choose your own adventure. There's no one set path. I took a decade off of running. My glorified halftime show, and somehow I figured out a way to have a bonus life and return to the space, and had a pretty good 2020. But I think also with that is I came back very, very patiently. After my daughter, I had her in 2016. I slowly over those 4 years built up very, very slowly. And that somehow that consistency there really made for a great 2020. But something that I really want to start telling people about the benefits of eating dried grapes. It's all about raising awareness, really. So that's me in a nutshell. What was the question again? I feel like I got off track with raisins.
So what are your running goals for 2021?
Running goals for 2021. You know, it's funny because I am very open about all of my goals. And I know some people really keep those guarded because, you know, it's intimidating and vulnerable to kind of share what you're going for. But I have found so much strength just being an open book and having people hold me accountable and other people knowing what I'm aiming for. So So I'm really okay talking about it. And I know it's probably going to come off crazy what I'm about to say, which is why I just prefaced what I just said. But so for 2021, my goal is to make the Olympic trials with both the 5K and the 10K. And I want to make a team. So I want to be one of the top 3 in either of those races. I really don't care. Really, if I had a shot in the 100 meters, I'd be doing that one at the trials, but there's no way I could ever learn how to get out of blocks or be fast enough to even compete. But so the 5K and then 10K, and then this fall I'll be doing another marathon. I would like to take some time off of my my recent 222, and I will be attempting to go after the American record sometime in the next year or so. So that is my plan. I know that sounds a little wild and crazy, but go big or go home, right?
I'd love to open this up to everybody and hear what anybody else has on tap for 2021.
I'll go.
No goals? No one has anything?
You know what? I think that all of us have, we all are always working through goals, right? There's so much uncertainty. I know a lot of people watching too. And I talk to runners every day, but it's like, I have all these things, but I don't know if they're going to happen, or I don't know if these events are going to happen. And so it's, it's the ever train toward it. But right now, my goal, so I have 3 races on my calendar right now. 2 of them are overseas, so I don't know if those are going to happen. But the one in July is a race called Badwater 135. So it's 135 miles. You start at the lowest point in the lower 48 states, and then the original race you ran to the top of Mount Whitney. So you just ran from the desert to the mountains. Like, how much fun is that? I did it in 2018. It was the first time I've ever done a road ultra. I typically just like big mountain races. But yesterday, or 2 days ago, I applied for a permit for Mount Whitney. And my hope is that I can run the race at a very wonderful pace. That's my goal, is to win that race. But I would like to cross the finish line, which is at the portal of Mount Whitney, and then summit the top of the mountain. So I told my crew that, and they were like, "You're joking, right?" But then they all got notifications from Mount Whitney Wilderness Park or whatever, saying, "Hey, you're on this permit to summit." So I had to convince them to continue on with me, or find like other people to continue on. But that's kind of like my big goal, is to run through the desert and then summit the tallest mountain in America.
So I'm actually going to interrupt before anybody else comments back. So then I would love to know how the Inside Tracker customized action plan is helping you optimize your nutrition and recovery. Because I would imagine that your nutrition and also your recovery is very important when you're doing something as, I don't know whether to say crazy or inspiring.
You can totally say crazy. Yeah. Yeah, my coach, when I had told him I was doing that in 2018, he just shook his head like, "Okay, I don't think I can really stop you from doing this. That's crazy." In 2018, when I did that race, I did not have my nutrition down right. It totally ruined my race, and I had these crazy seizing muscle cramps, starting at mile 30 all the way to the finish line. It was very debilitating and painful, but you bring your crew out there, and they're out there with you for 4 days. And it was the hottest that race had ever been. It was 127 Fahrenheit. So by mile 50, I was about ready to collapse. I had lost 10 pounds at that point. I was vomiting everywhere. And we had a sports nutrition scientist was on our crew. And so thankfully, he kind of knew what to do to get my nutrition back in check. But we had a meeting just last week. I was chatting with him, and he was like, "That's the number one thing that you need to get down, is you need to get down your hydration, your electrolytes, like your exact food." Because I think in my mind, I was like, "Oh, I'm just going to fuel the same way I do for like 100-mile in the mountains." And it was not wise at all. That's a totally different race when you're racing in the heat. So Inside Tracker is key, because I know just the recent test that I did, and Maddie, you totally nailed it. Iron is always my thing. I sweat like I sweat so much just anyway. I've always been on the borderline of that. And there's other markers in there that just kind of show me how I'm recovering. So the training leading up to that race, I need Inside Tracker to tell me like, okay, you're recovering good. This is good. Or, these certain biomarkers are optimized, work on this, because I want to be at the start line knowing that I did everything I possibly could to get my body ready and know that it's prepared for the absolute brutality that I am willfully going to put upon it. So yeah, really, really grateful for that. I actually have my next blood test, I think in 2 weeks. So we'll see how my training has been and if I've improved on my iron, because I need to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from any of the other panelists how the Inside Tracker plans help you guys make sure that you can reach your goals in 2021.
I'll go. I actually found out that I was low on vitamin B12, which was surprising to me because I eat a lot of food that has B12. I eat a ton of dairy, a ton of meat, animal products. But there is, as a dietitian, I know there's a genetic component to some of these things. And that I could just be somebody who doesn't, absorb B12 as efficiently as somebody else. And so that was really interesting for me to find out, because I have already covered all my bases with food, I've had to add a supplement, but normally I try to, adjust anything I can with my diet first. And Inside Tracker does a great job of giving really specific recommendations and then also recipes and those kinds of things. So as a dietitian, I really appreciate their emphasis on food first. But of course, again, like I said before you just supplement things, it's always good to know what's lacking and how you can fix that before turning to supplements.
Awesome. Does anybody else want to go before the next question?
Yeah, when Maddie was talking earlier about how super high iron and ferritin kind of has similar symptoms to like low iron, I was like, you're talking to me. Inside Tracker's been great because in college when I first got there, like my freshman year was the first time I ever had an iron test, and it was like low, not terribly low. So they told me to just like take a supplement, no like real directions or anything. So that was just something I like did throughout college. And then when I graduated and like continued on, but what I didn't realize was that like, as I got better at like cooking and making better nutritional choices, I didn't actually need a supplement. So then I started with Inside Tracker and it was like in the red, like, please stop taking iron altogether. You don't have a problem. You just needed to like eat real food and like be a normal person. So like that's been huge for me because you do start to feel like fatigued and you're like, but my iron's so high. And it's like, well, that's not always great either. So I like that Inside Tracker has like an optimal zone where it's like not too low and not too high. So that's been really good for me.
That's awesome. I didn't even know that was a thing that it could be too high.
Apparently.
Okay, so my next question is for Keely Henninger, and Keely is a professional trail runner, scientist, and coach who seeks to educate, coach, and empower female athletes to be the best they can be. She has been on Team USA, named in the top 10 for Ultra Runner of the Year. She's the USA 50-mile national champion and holds multiple wins at prestigious races around the country. So my question for you, Keely, is what does success mean to you? And did 2020 change how you define what success is?
First of all, I don't know why I'm the only one with a virtual background, but that is
we loved it.
me running back there. I swear I'm not some egotistical runner. I just love this photo and I feel like it brings people joy when they get to look at it when I'm on Zoom all day. But that's an aside. Hello, everyone. I'm so stoked to be here. I've been with Inside Tracker since their infancy, so it's kind of fun to see how fast and how large they're growing. So I'm pretty stoked. So could you repeat the question?
Yes, I said, what does success mean to you? And did 2020 change the way that you define succce?
Yeah, I was laughing about this earlier because I feel like I got the really hard question. I'm really excited to hear what everyone else has to say.
I knew you could handle it. That's why I picked you.
Yeah, I really love this question because I think what's interesting about all human endeavors is that success is like defined by you, right? And so I used to define success in the very short term. I was like willing to sacrifice pretty much anything for short-term success. Like if someone would have asked me if I would, you know, train my hardest so that I could win X race, even if maybe that meant I wouldn't be able to run in 5 years, there was a point in my life where I would probably say yes. And that's just not healthy. And I think going into 2020, I by no means tackled it well, but I think I really did come out of it with a better understanding of like what success means to me. And instead of starting to think about the short term, because all of a sudden all of those short term goals were kind of wiped off the board, there was no more short term like goals to achieve. I really just had to start sitting with myself. Like I was kind of a wreck for a while at the beginning of all of this. And I think it just took some really like lengthy understanding of why I run and like what actually is success to me in the long term instead of the short term, for me to actually come to a new definition. And now I kind of define success as how happy and how fulfilled I feel doing the activities or exercises that I'm doing, regardless of whatever short-term or long-term goal they're aimed at. And that's kind of just how I've tried to reframe my mind throughout all of this. And instead of going out the door trying to run something or running something because I have to for X goal, I kind of just ask myself, like, is this what I want to be doing today? And it's just been really helpful with like the mental aspect of everything.
I love that. So I'd also love to open this question up to anybody else. And if no one chimes in, I'm going to start picking people.
Let me jump in. I can come in. I was like, I'm going to piggyback a little bit on that because I think for me, like 2020, I mean, it just like, I was trying to, for a long time, I think I was trying to do like work at the same pace I was and chasing these same goals. And it took me a long time to realize like, that just didn't feel good for me because we now have all these external stressors that are just put onto our lives. And me also, I think chasing some of these same goals and training as hard or whatever, it just didn't feel good anymore. So it took me a second to like step back. And it was actually I came back to hiring a coach. I'm a lifestyle, we'll introduce myself in a second. I was like, I'm more of a lifestyle runner and coach. I'm so impressed with these professional ladies here. And, you know, it gave me an opportunity to come back to like the fundamentals. And so like running for like enjoyment and like building in rest and slowing way down opposed to just like doing speed workouts and doing things that felt challenging for me because, you know, a workout that, you know, setting new goals that felt challenging for me because a workout that I could overcome gave me more momentum within my day. So I took a step way back. And so, you know, I'm only running, you know, 4 or 5 days a week now, opposed to like, was really pushing it a lot further. I pivoted more towards running opposed to a lot of like weightlifting because that's something I enjoy more. So I think for me, like success specifically in like this like fitness and movement type of component came back to like doing things I enjoy, opposed to doing things to like chase whatever set goal or cross whatever set finish line. And I think that just made it like, I just love running so much more now than I did a year from now, which is not what I thought I would have been saying.
I also love that.
I'm going to jump in too with my.
Yes, please. I love this question.
I love this too. And I think both of you answered it so beautifully. And I think for me, like success is just having the courage to set like some wild, crazy goal and then just passionately go for it, you know, like, and just the courage alone to like start something new or to go for something and then just to work towards it. It really, you know, it's like cliche, but it doesn't so much matter for the outcome, but it's just like really the fact that you can start and just have that, you know, the courage, I guess, to go for it. And then you learn something, you know, so if you hit the goal or if you don't, you learn and then you keep going. So that's what it means to me.
I love it. Okay, so the next question is for Erin, and this kind of is going to flow into what you were saying before. Erin Bailey is an avid runner and run coach. She previously was the head coach for ASICS Runkeeper and ASICS Studio. She coached runners around the world with the goal of helping them fall in love with running. By day, she runs marketing for Beam, a wellness supplement company helping athletes with anxiety, recovery, performance, and sleep. And my question for you is, what does your rest and recovery plan look like?
Love talking about rest and recovery. I'm a big rest and recovery person. I'll talk about high level. I think it's very cool that I feel like in the past probably year and a half, 2 years, like rest and recovery has become so much more mainstream. I feel like it was so much about like go, go, go. And now it's like exciting to talk about what are your recovery tools or rest tools or rest regimen. So I think for me, I do better in general when I have a plan. So it's like I'm planning my workouts and I'm planning my rest days. And when I'm thinking about rest and recovery, it's like you have to start with the basics, right? And the basics is like literally not moving, right? It's not taking, you know, the active recovery. It's like really, really resting, stretching. I've worked in yoga. I used to hate yoga. I worked in some yoga and then doing other tools. I'm a big like recovery tool junkie. Like I have my Normatec boots, I have my Hyperice gun. Like I think those things are really fun, but really again, starting with the basics and the fundamentals that you can do in your own home, foam rolling, stretching, those types of things. And then adding in, you know, additional things to supplement some of those. So the biggest thing I think anyone needs to focus on a little bit more is their sleep. Especially as like, I know I got a lot of head nods on that one. I was like, I know a lot of you and a lot of you watching are probably training so hard. Like the most your body's recovering is while you are sleeping. Like that's really where the magic happens. And so it's not only just getting, I mean, minimum 7 hours of sleep. I think probably with the mileage a lot of y'all are running, it's like really 8, 9+ hours of sleep. And then really looking at sleep is not just like time in bed, but it's like, are you tracking your sleep? Are you getting, you know, time in your REM cycles, time in your deep sleep cycles? Because that's really where you recover too. So just a little plug, I do work for a supplement company. Like one of our main products, and this is just organically, is this product called Dream. And it's has magnesium, melatonin, reishi, L-theanine, things that help you recover and really help deepen that quality of sleep that you get. Because that's the biggest thing people aren't getting, right? So I'd say, and that was another thing probably for me in 2020 was like really focusing on my sleep and seeing how quickly, like when I have quality sleep, my day is so much better, right? So it's not just like what sleep can do for you. It's not just the sleep you get, but like really what sleep can like unlock for you and how you can train or show up in your work day or however. So I think that's something people need to pay a little bit more attention to.
I love sleep.
Big fan.
Who doesn't? Okay, a couple of you have answered this, but I want to open it up again to the whole panel. And I'd love if you guys shared how Inside Tracker helps you optimize your health, your nutrition, your recovery, or sleep. Is there one specific thing that really Inside Tracker has helped you kind of dive into or see where you are lacking and where you can improve? And if no one jumps in,
I'll go really quick. I know I already touched on it, but I do have to say just really quick, I love how passionate Erin, you were in talking about recovery and sleep. Like the enthusiasm was felt. And I can't tell you enough how much, I just think any sport, anybody that's watching, regardless of what sport or activity you do, recovery and rest, and really just paying attention to yourself, we need to talk about that more. And it helps for so many different reasons beyond just recovering from a run. I mean, just for your total well-being, right? So Erin, I could have kept on listening to you because you got like fired up. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was pretty awesome.
I talk about sleep all day. I feel it, and my energy levels go up when we talk about slowing down. So,
yeah, no, it's so good. I've had to learn the hard way over the course of many years. I know, and Keira and Dorothy, both you guys are mamas. I don't know if I couldn't remember if any of you guys had children too, anyone else on the panel, but it's really easy when you're taking care of people. So even if you're just a guardian, you're taking care of people, you kind of forget to really take the time to be considerate of yourself. And Inside Tracker, when I look at my results, what I've realized is I have to be so much more thoughtful in my day as to exactly what it is I'm eating. So it's disciplined me and kind of made me be better at meal planning, which I normally am not. Like I'll just be like, okay, get the kids what they need to eat, plan their dinner, because I usually just eat like so differently than them. And so now it's like I'll spend Sunday prepping food. When I'm at the grocery store, it's like, I need this so I can feel better about this biomarker. And, but all of that has affected everything else about me. Like I've paid more, my watch tracks my sleep. And so I've been seeing, okay, how much REM am I getting every night? every tiny little thing I'm realizing is affecting my biomarkers. And so I get pretty excited when I get my results back and I can go and look. So there's always a surprising marker on there, but it's just forced me to be more considerate of myself. And I'd say the way that I grew up as a kid and the environment that I was in, I did not learn how to do that. And I spent many years, I'd say a good decade, where I only slept 3 hours a night, just because of some stress going on. So it's a struggle that I have. I have a hard time with the recovery and being considerate myself. So Inside Tracker, I feel like, is just kind of like, you know, a guardian in a way. It's like, hey, we want you to perform well, and this is what you can do, and you can do it with food, and gives you that reminder. And then all the encouragement and the feedback you get just from the staff is just, it's been incredible. So really grateful on so many levels.
Love hearing that. I think it's so easy for, as athletes, to go, and to not rest.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off what Sally said about compassion in yourself. I think what really hit home for me, and what I see happen for a lot of people, is Inside Tracker kind of makes you see what's going on the inside, and you can't really hide from it anymore. And so I think by just doing that, you're all of a sudden faced with these tangible things that are maybe you're doing wrong, or that are your shortcomings that you can actually help to improve, that will ultimately help you train better. And I think what's really cool about the interface is that not only can you get one snapshot in time, but you can actually just track how your biomarkers are changing over time, and you can actually look at how your levels change. It's not necessarily like what your level should be on a scale of 1 to 5, but maybe your fluctuations correlate with how you're feeling, and therefore like you need to make changes for yourself, and like you have your own optimized zone. And that's pretty cool to watch over time, whether it's like over a huge training cycle, or maybe right after an injury, or maybe, you know, right before a race. You can kind of just see how all of those things are changing and impacting how you're training. And I've just found it really helpful.
I would second that. I find it very interesting and very helpful. So I'm now going to ask questions. These are fun questions, in my opinion. So my question is, what's your go-to post long run meal or your favorite snack? And I'm going to start with Maddie.
Awesome. Yes. So usually my post-run meal is some type of breakfast. I'm somebody, I can't really move on with my day unless I've had a true breakfast food. So I don't really count my pre-run as my breakfast. You know, like peanut butter toast doesn't really do it for me. Like, you know, it's great before a run, but so usually post-run I'll have some type of like egg and veggie scramble. So that color and protein right there. I'll do some carbs like pancakes or French toast or bagels, cereal, oatmeal, that kind of thing. And then usually fruit, and then of course coffee because it's breakfast. So that's usually what I go to. And then on workout days, I'll also have some type of recovery drink with protein and carbs in between, you know, my run and breakfast, depending on how long I have between them.
Awesome. Erika.
Oh, okay. I couldn't find the button. My favorite, let's do snack. I don't know why I said that. I didn't have that answer either. Okay, no. My favorite snack would be fruit and cheese. So like either like an apple or a pear, and then just like straight up some cheese, because like I think it checks enough boxes and it like makes me happy. So like I'll have that either right after a run, like before I shower, because I really like to shower before I go like cook a whole meal. Or if I have to double in the afternoon, I'll have it like a couple hours before, but it's something that makes me happy. I think it checks enough nutrition boxes in the middle of the day. So yeah, I'm a fruit and cheese person.
Well, and I think food should absolutely make you happy, which maybe now you can tell us, what was it called? Free flow cooking?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Could you explain
what that is? I wrote. Because I was just like typing it on my phone and I was like, describe yourself. And like, that's what came out. But what I meant was just like, I am terrible at following recipes. I just like, I'm not that rigid of a person. It's a lot of steps. It's like a lot of ingredients to remember. So like when I cook, when I'm in the kitchen, it's much more of just like a free flowing experience, like, oh, here's like 7 things, let's try to make something out of it. So it's much more like experimental and just kind of making sure everything's like safe to eat and like tastes good, and like a lot less like structured.
Love it. Okay, Erin, tell me what your favorite snack is or your favorite post long run meal.
I'm a big bagel sandwich, breakfast sandwich after the long run, like an everything bagel. I can like squeeze 2 fried eggs in there. We'll go for that. And like thick bacon, avocado. That's it. And then usually I'll have like a little protein shake or something because I want to have like a chocolate milkshake-esque thing with it. Yeah, so good.
This is making me hungry.
Like
Keira, your turn.
Well, it depends on the time of year. If it's hot outside, it's always a protein smoothie, and then I'll go into something a little bit later with carbs, but just getting that in right away. But I love granola, like in like a Greek yogurt or like toast with avocado and egg on top. So pretty much though, like I don't discriminate. So whatever is closest into reach after a long run is what is going to go into my body. So
that may also be a mom thing. Maybe Sally could jump into on that.
Yeah, for sure. The whatever is closest in reach when I get home. But if I'm in the mountains for like 5 or 6 hours, I usually have a cooler with me, a cooler of food. And it's crazy over the years what I crave. So I usually will have a cooler and I'll eat that as I drive home, and then I go home and make a meal. And usually that cooler, I know it's so weird, but I crave a big crunchy apple. I don't know what that is. Like, why am I craving a big crunchy apple? It's usually in the summertime. And then I want sparkling water, blueberries, and then I usually have fresh squeezed green juice. So I'll consume all that in the car. And then when I get home, then I'm making something like egg avocado toast. So good. Breakfast sandwich. I could eat breakfast every meal. Like, that's the best meal. Like breakfast burritos, like pancakes. So happy. I love that you say food makes you happy, Erin. You're like, it just makes me happy. And that's so true. I love to eat. So it's kind of like where I am in the world. After I finish race, like I was with Keely, we were in New Zealand. I did a 100-miler, and all I wanted, they have the best meat there. So their bacon, cheeseburger, and sweet potato fry, that was just like my jam. So big food after those long runs.
And then last but not least, Keely.
Man, this is tough. I pretty much agree with everyone, but I feel like it's a little harder if you're running like really long days in the mountains, because you get done, you don't know what time it is. So I feel like you really get a pass to have breakfast or dinner. But I would say that like Maddie, I don't count my pre-run breakfast at all. I also don't count my like coffee, goo, like protein shake, anything either. That's just like what you need right after a run. And so then I'd say like after that, if I could choose like my favorite, I'd probably just pick cold pizza. Yeah, that's just my go-to.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to open this up to whoever wants to answer it. What communities, companies, or women do you follow for inspiration? Or who do you find inspiring online or offline?
I really like the community Voice in Sport. They're really encouraging female athletes to pursue careers in sport and, equal pay for women in sport and careers in general. They're also a great resource for young female athletes to help encourage you to find resources for mental health, nutrition support, coaching even. So that's one of my favorite resources is Voice in Sport. So check them out if you haven't.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll go. Mine is, it's a little separate from, it's a personal passion of mine, but I love anything that has to do with orphan care. I spent a lot of years traveling the world and working in orphanages and homeless shelters and things like that. So I love, it's called Justice and Mercy International. And so yeah, they take care of orphans and people in impoverished communities with supplies, just on the ground, helping out those communities that don't have much. And then of course, orphans that sometimes many times are forgotten. So I think sport is such an amazing way we can use our platform to connect with people all over the world. And when I was a soccer player, I had the opportunity to be on an all men's soccer team. And it was made up of people from all over different countries, and it was pro and semi-pro and then college players. And I didn't know I was the only girl on the team until I arrived, but it was with an organization called Ambassadors in Sport. And we use soccer as a way to connect with people in the community, but we went into like homeless shelters and orphanages and just these really impoverished communities. And that kind of changed like my view of sport in general, that we have this opportunity, and especially as professionals or having a platform, that you can use sport as a way to impact other people. And so, those are a lot of the types of accounts that I like to follow, are just people that use their gifts and their talents to help out other people that don't have anything or much, or that need help. So.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you shared there, Sally. And Maddie, I'll add, just as like a current inspiration account I've been following. His account name is Hella Good. Have you guys seen him? I don't know him personally. I actually just found him on TikTok. People should check it out. He's been running for like every day for like 3 years in a row. And that was like kind of how he started running. And now he's running across America. I think he's on like day 7. He just started. So he's doing like LA to New York, and kind of documenting his journey along the way. And he's raising money for charity. And I think he's picking a couple different charities as he's doing it. And it's really cool because people are like joining him for different parts of the run. He's had some really interesting experiences on the run too. So I think one, it's just a very cool thing what he's doing and building. I think it's just been fun for me to like jump in if I'm needing some motivation before my run that day. He's like literally running with this like huge smile across his face every single day. And he's like, it's such a beautiful day for a run that he's just a light. So I think it's really awesome what he's doing, and he's been fun to watch.
Very cool. Can you say, what was the account name again?
It's Hella Good, like HELLAH. It's his first name, Hella Good. I think it's like Hella Good 9, maybe on Instagram. But he's doing Instagram and TikTok. He's documenting. So there's some fun stuff over there. Are you looking right now, Sally? You're like looking it up?
Since we are getting close to wrapping this up, I'm going to skip to the last question because I really would like a chance for all of you to answer this if possible. What would you say to a younger version of yourself or to other young women in the sport about how to prioritize longevity in the sport? And I won't call on you, so someone has to jump in and go first.
I'll jump in. So yeah, if I saw like 13-year-old Keira, I'd probably tell her to do a different hairdo and maybe change her outfit or something like that. But besides the weird fashion choices, I'd probably steer clear of. I would just, and this, I hate giving this advice because this is not in my personality at all, but it's something that I think is really important and that I'm working on, especially with endurance sports, is just patience. Like nothing is going to come quick, and if you're doing it quick, you're doing it wrong. So it's long, it's consistent. It's just playing that long game. Patience is power in a sport, in an endurance sport, and just kind of taking your time to get there and just keep making those little steps every day. And sometimes that little step is the focus on rest and recovery. But if you just keep on taking those little steps, eventually you're, going to be way ahead of where you are. So that's the advice I'd give, although I hate saying be patient because that is not in my personality at all. But
excellent advice.
I'll jump in. I think as a dietitian, I'm going to talk about fueling, of course, but I think I would just tell younger athletes that, all bodies can be athletic and you don't have to look a certain way to be good. I'm a high school coach as well, and I see a lot of young girls struggle with this. And I just really want young girls to know that it's not worth, shaving a few seconds off of your PR to do some serious long-term damage to your body by underfueling or overtraining or both. And like Keira said, just be patient. If you're new to running, it might take a while for you to get there, but the best way to be healthy and have success long-term is to take care of the only body that you have. So you know, just not being stressed out or comparing yourself to where other people are. Everyone's journeys look completely different. There's so many different ways to get to the start line of any race that it just, it's so much more important to take care of your physical and mental health than it is to sacrifice for one good season or one good race. So just take care of your body.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. Who wants to go next? Maybe Sally.
Yeah, I'll go. I think one of the things that I wish I would have known when I was younger was just to be a little bit more gracious with myself and be okay with failure. I think that was something that I learned later on in life, is realizing that failure is a part of the journey for all of us. And it's many times one of our greatest teachers. And so instead of being so hard on myself when I didn't reach a goal or when something didn't come out the way that I hoped it would be, realizing that when you look into that failure, it's like, what are all the things that I can do to become better? How can I grow from this? What are the choices that, you know, bad choices that I made that caused this? Or and sometimes it's just realizing that is just how life goes. Like sometimes you work so hard for something and it just doesn't come out the way that you hoped it would be, and realizing there's so much more to go. There's so much more life ahead, so many chances. I mean, I think Keira is an amazing, inspiring example of this. I mean, she had a 10-year break, and so often you hear people say like, I'm too old, I'm too broken, or that ship is passed, or I'm just not cut out for this because I've failed too many times. And so I think I wish I would have learned that younger, so I would have been a little bit nicer to myself, a little bit more gracious. So especially for the younger ones that are watching, rise up from your failure. There's good things to come, and yeah, be kind to yourself. So
you guys are great. Wish I was taking notes right now. Erika, could you go?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel relatively young, so it feels kind of funny to like give advice to my younger self. But what I would say to especially like high school girls or girls in college right now is just like, there's no rush to peak. I'm starting to understand and see that like, there's just no rush. Like, why do you want to rush things and take shortcuts and wreck your body to be your absolute best at like 17 or 20 or 22? Like, as I get older, I realize that there's still so much life ahead of me. Like, and I mean, when you're a kid, especially when you're like really young, like 10, you think 20 sounds super old. And then you turn 18, 20, and you think 30 sounds really old. And now I'm 26 and I'm like, oh, like 30 is not old. 35 is not old. 40 is not old. And you just realize that there's so much time and space ahead of you and there's just no rush for it. So I would say like, slow down. Like, take your time. Everyone's on a different timeline. Like, yeah, like it's kind of hard to see your peers sometimes excelling past you, but that doesn't mean that you won't get there one day. So you have all the time in the world.
Love that. Keely?
I feel like that is really in line with what I was just about to say. So thank you, Erika. But basically, I would just tell myself to enjoy the process, because I think that all of my early career was always oriented around these goals. And the funny thing about that is I would get to the goal and I would maybe even pass the goal and it still wasn't enough. It was just the next goal, and then the next goal and the next goal. And then it kind of just becomes this never ending finish line. And so I would say just enjoy the process, enjoy the day to day, and the goals will come, and focus on that instead of just the goals.
Erin?
These are all really great answers. I think I would say like, you have whether like running or whatever your sport or movement is, like, I know especially as a kid, like growing up, like tennis was my thing. And I was like, I had my whole identity within tennis. And it was like, as soon as that was over, I was having this whole identity crisis. Like, you are a whole person outside of your sport. And so like, don't just, mom's just reminding yourself of like, your whole identity is not wrapped up in what you can physically do, you know? So take care of your mental health, like have other hobbies, do other things. Like you can still make the main thing, and like make sure you're building out your full life, right? Do the things with your friends. You just live all of it, because all of that's so important. It's not just the training, not just the sport. Like you are a whole person. So I want you to enjoy your whole life.
I love that advice. I saw something that you wrote on your Instagram about not searching for a better half, that you are whole as is. And I had never ever thought about the phrase better half. Yeah, I loved it. Whole as is. So we are going to be wrapping up in just a couple of minutes, but I wanted to see if anybody else who hadn't answered about what communities, companies, or women that you follow for inspiration wanted to jump in our last few minutes. Does anybody else have a go-to inspiration source?
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to all the media sources that are covering like women's sports, and especially like in like the endurance community. And there's a lot of like women podcasters and journalists that are really highlighting women's stories and doing, I think, you know, a better job lately with diverse stories too. Because I think the more diverse stories that we can hear and learn about different people, the more inclusive our sport is going to feel. And I think that's really important. And just seeing, you know, like Allie on the Run or Lindsay Hine and Carrie C. Tolly Run and the Fast Women newsletter, and, you know, all these different women, the keeping track, I think is so cool that these women are stepping up to share such diverse stories. And I think especially for younger girls in general, just seeing people take different paths and just be different and find their way in the sport, I think is just really healthy to make sure that more people feel included. But so.
I would love to add an Instagram account to that. It's called Diverse We Run. And I'll throw that into the mix as well. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you to Inside Tracker for hosting this excellent panel. I had a wonderful time chatting with everybody and look forward to hearing more from you guys in the future.